What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another rendition of the Falcon Eye View, the show where I take a closer look at the things that interest me, I guess you could say, or better yet, the things that interest you. The first inaugural episode was on Trey Lance. If you missed that, you can go back and check it out. We took a little bit of a deeper dive about some of the things that intrigue me about Trey Lance and some of the things that worry me about Trey Lance. This week, in light of us finally making it official and hiring a new head coach, I've decided that I'm going to take a look at Arthur Smith and his scheme. More importantly, how I think the scheme that he runs can benefit the Falcons. We're going to go over a lot of numbers and we're going to go over a handful of plays as I try to get my point across, I guess you could say, or paint the picture in the best way that I can. So, without further ado, let's just get into it. First and foremost, Arthur Smith spent the past 2 years as the offensive coordinator of the Tennessee Titans. Before that, he has spent his entire coaching career with the Titans organization, where he started as an intern, moved up to O-line coach, O-line's assistant, tight ends assistant, tight end coach, to eventually OC. So this guy has definitely paid his dues, but by now you've heard all of this. You have probably also heard that he's the son of the founder of FedEx. And technically speaking, he's worth more than Arthur Blank. So, in a way, you could say he's the richest Arthur in the building. But all that set aside, what I'm really more concerned about is how his scheme is going to fit the Atlanta Falcons, or potentially fit the Atlanta Falcons. I really feel like if he decides to run his first year with Matt Ryan, I feel like you're going to see shades of the offense that Shanahan had. Maybe not necessarily in the amount of the score per se, but I think the balance is going to be there. In 2018, I'm going to give you the numbers. 2018, remember, is Matt LaFleur ran the Tennessee Titans offense. And so 2019 and then 2020 was Arthur Smith. So I'm going to get into some of the numbers so that we can hopefully paint a better picture. In 2018, the run plays of Matt LaFleur were 428 versus a 432 pass plays. Okay, 2019, that went to a 397 run to a 450 pass. So a little more heavy on the pass. In 2020, it went from 510 run plays to 509 pass plays. Now this is important because in those 510 run plays, he got Derick Henry to 2,000 yards. Now, as the coach himself acknowledged in his press conference, Derick Henry, you can't just always find that type of a player, in the draft or just anywhere, right? So he understands that he doesn't have a Derick Henry on this roster. Now, we're going to get into it here in a little bit, but he may have something that's potentially close to a Derick Henry, but we'll get into that here in a minute. Now, some of the other interesting things that I found in the 2020 season, it was almost a dead balance on run to pass, 50-50, okay? Like I said, it was 510 runs to 509 passes. That's almost dead even. That's important. That's a balanced offense. When we were really clicking in 2016 under Shanahan, you had a very balanced offense. The past few years under Dirk Cutter, as if any of you have watched me long enough now know, it was a very unbalanced offense. You ask your quarterback to throw 30 and 40 times or 40 plus times a game, and it tends to end in disaster. Some of the personnel groupings that he likes to use is 11 personnel. And in that 11 personnel, it was 61% of the time it was he ran or passed the ball out of 11 personnel to the tune of 16 touchdowns. 39% of the time he ran the football to a tune of 5 touchdowns. 49% success rate on passes, and 58% success rates on run. The important thing to note there is that he is running and passing out of the same formation. That is a very important thing. You do not tip off a defense when you can successfully run and pass out of the same formation types. All right, moving on to the next highest personnel was a 12 personnel. So he used 11 personnel and 12 personnel mainly, about 73% of the time. He used 12 personnel 33% and 11 personnel 40%. For those that don't know, 11 personnel is one back, one tight end. 12 personnel is one back and two tight ends. Okay, so I hope Hayden Hurst is ready to do some blocking again, because that was a very effective thing that Arthur Smith did with his tight ends is block. Okay, Jonnu Smith, the tight end that was mainly the threat there, only had like 200 or 300 yards in receptions. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, it has been said that Arthur Smith tailors his scheme to the players, which is something that I am looking forward to big time. So we'll see how that turns out. But in that 12 personnel, which, like I said, he ran 33% of the time, he had a 53% success rate. 44% of the time was a pass, 56% of the time was a run. So that's something to keep in mind there. Out of that personnel, it was very close to being 50-50. And he had a 55% success rate with the passes and a 52% success rate with the runs. Okay? So those are all things to help paint a picture of what the scheme is going to look like. It's a very, very balanced attack, and that's something that I am very excited about. Now, some of the other stuff that I want to bring up before we get into the plays, I know that's why y'all are here, is the plays. I started with stats, and I'm going to keep you here with the plays. Anyway, some of the other the stats that I wanted to bring up under all other OCs that Derick Henry played under, he had 48.8% rush yards per game, so less than 50 yards a game, 4.6 yards per attempt, and a half a touchdown a game. So that's what he was averaging under Matt LaFleur and the guys before him. Arthur Smith, he averaged 118 yards rushing, 5.4 yards a carry, and over a touchdown a game. That's scheme right there. That's how it's schemed. And I'm going to show you some of that. I'm going to point some of that out, right? And now, as far as the ones talking about, like, oh, what does he do for the quarterback or whatever, under all other coordinators that Ryan Tannehill played under, his record is 42-46. He had a little under 2 touchdowns a game. Or, no, excuse me, it was a 1.6 touchdown to interception ratio. So 1 touchdown to 6 interceptions, with a total QBR of 48.9. Under Arthur Smith, he had 17 wins, 7 losses, with a 3.9 touchdown to interception ratio. I said that wrong earlier. For every 1.6 touchdowns thrown, he threw an intercept. My brain's locking up on that one. Anyway, the touchdown to interception ratio is 3.9 under Arthur Smith, and with a total QBR of 71.7. Still, he wasn't making Ryan Tannehill a world beater, right? But he was making it work in that offense. He was making Ryan Tannehill work inside that offense. That's the point I'm trying to make. I don't know if I did it very well there, but hopefully y'all got what I was trying to make there. All right, so let's just get into some of the things that y'all are here for, right? First thing we're going to do is look at a run play. Now, since last week, I have installed my fancy handy-dandy, right there, my handy-dandy instant replay tablet. Took a minute to hang it on the wall. The parts were on back order, but we'll see if it's going to help us out this week. All right, so first thing I want y'all to look at, let's see here. Okay, you got the first, look at the formation there, right? He motions, and that's a big thing with Arthur Smith. I'm going to back it up just a little bit. All right. motion almost every play. That was something I saw a ton of. Almost every play, Arthur Smith is sending somebody into motion to help Ryan Tannehill understand what he is looking at, right? So, tight end goes into motion. You get a stack set on the far side, and then there's your run, right? You send the extra blocker in on the run, and that's what makes that work, right? You send the tight end into motion, and it lets the quarterback know if it's man or if it's zone. And with the tight end on that side of the field, that adds in another blocker. I hope that Julio Jones hasn't forgotten how to block, and Calvin Ridley is definitely going to learn how to block. Now, we're going to take a closer look at that, right? So here it is from a different angle. Tight end comes into motion, gets on the other side of the formation, and that's where he runs to. The tight end in this particular, I'm going to run it back one more time. Let's see. Yep. Run it back one more time. The tight end, watch him now. He comes into motion there. And when he comes into motion, he comes back and he seals the backside of that play. That's what makes that work. He seals the backside of that run. And on that particular play, he was sealing away J.J. Watt. So that's the kind of things that Hayden Hurst or another tight end is going to have to get good at and going to have to get familiar with is sealing off the backside of that. I mean, that was a good run there. Got you 3 or 4 yards. I mean, and that's what Derick Henry did all season. Like, yeah, he broke off some big ones, but it was a consistent 3-4 yards every time they blocked, every time they lined up. It was 3-4 yards. And that right there will wear a defense out. And that was something I was enjoying seeing. Now, we're going to go look at another 11 personnel play here, because that was, like I said, it's something he ran a lot, 11 personnel. So let's take a look at this. He's near the goal line. Again, this time Derick Henry goes into motion. Now, I'm going to stop it here. Oh, I'm going to try to stop it there. I'm going to stop it there. I'm going to back it up a little bit, all right? Now, watch how much space is there for Derick Henry if Ryan Tannehill wants it. It's a check down, but just watch how much space is there for him, okay? So, play goes. Henry goes into motion. Wheel route out. He's got all that space over there. But what that does, because people are so focused on Henry, that leaves so much open in the middle for the tight end. Now, you imagine that with Hayden Hurst, and that's going to be just a beautiful thing. We'll take one more look at it, right? So watch it again. Now, I want you to watch the tight end on the very end of the formation there. All right, he pretends to block, sells the block, comes open, way open in the middle. Just wide open, chunk. Take a closer look at that here. All right, here's from the close side of that. All right, this is against the Ravens. Real good defense here. Henry goes into motion. Tight end comes open right across the middle of the field. He sells his block and then comes wide open. These are the type of plays that Arthur Smith draws up for his players. And, you know, because of the talent of a Derick Henry, it makes a lot of that work, especially a play like that where Derick Henry can draw so much attention. But that's a play that is a good design, and it works because of the run game. Because of the run game that Arthur Smith is able to establish, they have to respect it, okay? All right, let's go into what will be our last play I want y'all to take a look at. This is a formation that I saw him use quite a bit, not as much as the 11 personnel or the 12 personnel, but it was still something he used frequently enough to catch my attention, and it was a 13 personnel. All right, so this is a 13 personnel pass play. And what I want to show you here is that being able to run and pass out of the same formation is what is going to end up making this successful. It's what made Shanahan's scheme so successful, is that it all looks so similar, right? And that's something that good coaches do good at. So here it is, 13 personnel. He's got 3 tight ends on the field, using motion there again, okay? And as the play goes, there we go. And that's a play action pass out of that look. I'm going to show it to you one more time. Okay, that's 13 personnel, heavy set. You know, you got Henry in the backfield, and that's what sells this play action. And it's something that Arthur Smith uses quite a bit. It's play action. Another thing that I enjoy. You got Henry in there blocking, and has your the wide receiver come wide open on that one. So here's a run play using motion yet again. All right, and 13 personnel, stretches out. Henry sees the hole and cuts up. All right, one more time on that one. All right, motion. Tight end goes back. All tight ends over there. They stretch this thing out. Like I said, man, these tight ends that come in, they better get ready to block. As a former tight ends coach, which is like really where he made his chops at, I think that's something that Arthur Smith is going to be asking these tight ends to do quite a bit, is do some blocking, and I hope they're ready for it. Now, there's a comment I made earlier in here that I want to bring up. Now, Arthur Smith said that you're not always going to have a Derick Henry, right? But what he does have on roster already is a Quadre Olison. Some of y'all may have forgotten about that name. Quadre Olison is 6'2", 230 pounds. Now, Derick Henry is 6'4", I think like 235. So they're very similar in body type. And right now, Quadre Olison ain't got hardly any tread on the tires as far as the NFL level goes. He got drafted last year, or not last year, the year before last. Barely got used at all. I don't even think he was hardly active at all this year. He was completely and utterly forgotten. When we signed Todd Gurley, that meant that Quadre Olison was just absolutely a foregone conclusion, right? But I went back and looked at his, college stats, right? He rushed for Pitt, and in both 2015 and 2018, he eclipsed 1,000 yards. Both times in 2015, it was 5.3 yards a carry. In 2018, it was 6.3 yards a carry. Both times for a total of 11 touchdowns. Not too bad hands. 11 and 14 yards, or 11 and 14 receptions respectively. So might need to be working on something there. And I'm not sure how his pass blocking is. That may have been what kept him off the field. But I'm just sitting here thinking that maybe you do have a Derick Henry type. Obviously, I'm not saying he's necessarily in the same league. But the one thing that in watching the film of the Tennessee Titans, the one thing that Derick Henry did was consistently get you 3 yards. Like almost every time you handed him the ball, it was a guaranteed 3 to 4 yards. If Quadre Olison can do that, dude, that would be amazing. Okay? So that's what I have for y'all as far as the film study goes. He is somebody that I'm extra excited about. I'm going to take further looks into it as the off season goes on, as far as like route concepts and stuff like that. So what I wanted to really focus in on this time was personnel groupings, success rates, and how some of that stuff looked. I was really intrigued by the amount of motion and the amount of play action that he used, and I think that that's something that can truly help the Atlanta Falcons, whether they stick with Ryan or bring in somebody else. I mean, my feelings are that you're going to have Ryan at least the first year, but we'll see how it all turns out. Like, this remains to be seen. As always, Falcons fans, you can catch me on Twitter. I'm at Grim1128. That's GRIMM1128. You can catch us now every Wednesday at 7:30 doing our live show. The guys will be doing Draft House coming back up. It's going to be awesome. And, yeah, as always, Falcons fans, rise up.